Okay, great. All right, looks like we're recording. Welcome, everybody. My name is Olivia Allison, and on behalf of the Center of Hospitality Resilience, I am pleased to welcome you to today's webinar on experiential travel design with Dr. Maury Forbes. So thank you so much for joining us today. This is a webinar series intended to support small tourism and hospitality businesses as they navigate these unprecedented times as a result of COVID-19. By exploring topics related to operations, health and safety, marketing, risk management, contingency planning, and innovation, we hope to provide meaningful and relevant insight in relation to current small business issues to help you understand and respond to the changing landscape. This series is brought to you by the Center of Excellence for Hospitality Resilience, which is a joint initiative of Temple University's School of Sport, Tourism, and Hospitality Management and Temple Small Business Development Center. So let's see, we have the presentation recording, and a follow-up document will be sent to all of the attendees. And all of the attendees, you've been muted, but we do encourage you to post any questions you have in the chat box, and I'll be fielding those questions and we'll ask them at the end of the presentation. So now I will turn the floor over to Dr. Forbes.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good day. I teach destination management and marketing at Temple during the summer term and have been involved with creating experiences in the travel industry for, probably 30 years. So first of all, I'm going to share my screen and then we're going to get into the presentation. I will have basically what I say today in the webinar at the end of the white paper that should be coming out to you with the recording. So let's try sharing the screen here first. There we go. Okay, this is about creating inspiring and engaging and transforming experiences, which when you create experiences, they need to be all three, because you need to be the person who makes the person's day or creates the special moment when the visitors are in your organization. So first of all, let me put you all into a leisure moment. Think of your favorite movie. You consciously get to select what you want to see. You settle in and get comfortable. You organize your surroundings so you can just concentrate on the movie. You watch the scenes and the story of the movie unfold. You respond emotionally if the movie is really good. And you basically leave the rest of the world behind while you're watching. Good movies tell a really good story, and great movies have great choreography along with that story that moves you through the entire experience. And essentially, great travel experiences are also very well choreographed. Think of the travel experience people are having as one continuous unfolding movie. And I'm aware that most of the travel offerings and travel experiences were traditionally thought to be the proviso of tour operators and other single organizations who were supposed to put the product together, offer the product, and kind of move on from there. I think that's changed. Destinations are now looking to be the place that connects the components of an experience, and even they're focusing on their own experience, destination experience, where people coming into the destination are welcomed. They are able to see and do what they want to. The customer service throughout the destination is good. So I think we're in a changing time. A well-crafted travel experience is really a sequence of the attractions and the activities that unfold as the trip proceeds. And the visitor has previously organized themselves and their schedule and their surroundings so that they're able to really engage in the experience. They participate in the various activities that reveal the story of the experience, And just like responding to a movie, they're going to respond emotionally to parts of the experience that touch their senses and touch their emotions. And basically, they get to leave the rest of the world behind while they're engaged in the experience. So great trips are hands-on, engaging, and inspiring. People have to have something to engage their minds in order to get real relaxation. And the only way that people who work with their heads and not work with their hands can get real relaxation is if they put something else in their head to take away the thoughts of work. Otherwise, the computer is always there, the cell phone is always there, the outside influences are always there, and they're just constantly in the back of the mind, subtracting from the leisure experience that people want to have. So they have to remove themselves both mentally and physically, and they have to do both. And that's the reason that the travel experiences need to allow visitors to participate rather than just observing. When you're just observing, your mind can be wandering and thinking about the next thing you needed to do or the email that wasn't answered or whatever. But when you're participating and actively involved and engaged in something, that's really hard to do. So we also want them to be inspired and somehow to be uplifted, to look at this as their highlight for the day or the week, or even within the current situation, their highlight for the month, since a lot of us have not been able to get out a lot recently, so that you're really looking to be the bright spot and really impact your visitors and inspire them that there really is good in the current situation, or good can be had within the current situation. And essentially, you're looking for something that's going to make them feel good about the experience and feel better about themselves as they're going through it. So how are well-designed and travel experiences created? First of all, you have to start with the end in mind. What do you want the visitor to feel like when they're being treated in the destination or at your location? How do you want the experience to make the visitor feel? What do you want them to think about your destination or your location when the experience is over? And you want them to feel good enough about all of it, so they're going to go home and they're going to put it on Facebook, they're going to put it on Instagram moments. They're basically going to be telling their friends and their family, wow, I had a really great time. You ought to try this. You ought to do this. You ought to go there and take the time to take the trip or have the experience we did. So you start with that basically from your planning as your end goal of how do you want visitors to feel when they finished, and what do you want them to think about your destination or your location when they finish the experience. That's really important. That's very, very, very important, so that you're starting with creating the whole uplifting experience as you go along. We have a lot of partners, and we have a lot of moving pieces and parts in any experience. You're going to have partners because unless you are a complete destination or a complete location that can offer the visitors an entire experience in one package, you're going to have partners. And you need to really help those partners recognize what visitors need and what visitors want. And those two things are very different. needs and wants aren't the same thing. Well, for starters, 92% of visitors want relaxation. The other 8% must want physical activity, but 92% want relaxation. And 91% of the visitors want to create new memories. They want to have a memory, and a great memory to take back with them to wherever they're going back to. So those are the starting points that you need to convey to the partners that are in the experience. And travelers were stressed out even before COVID. It's just gotten worse. They're tired, they're overstimulated with all of the electronics, and they wanted to escape before all this started. Now it's just exacerbated. The Pew Research Center basically, their stress index is the highest that it's ever been since they began to do the studies decades ago. That means Americans are really, really, really stressed out. And I think that the ability to get away and the ability to escape daily lives has basically become a wellness product. I think we're no longer in the place where travel is just fun things to do, etc. I think it's really important that we think of what we're offering visitors as a wellness experience. And research by the Duke Medical Center reports that great experiences, believe this or not, they studied this, reduce stress and lower blood pressure as much as exercise. And how much more fun are they than going to the gym or having to do daily exercise if you can use an experience to reduce your blood pressure and your stress. But as I said earlier, the needs and wants are two very different things. Today's visitors want to escape, and they don't want further stress to be involved in that escape. They want everything facilitated for them, so it makes it as easy as possible for them to have the experience you're offering. They want to be engaged, and they want to be inspired, and basically some would like, or most would like, to be somehow transformed by the experience that you're offering. And that's hard to do, but with a level of engagement and with a level of planning and storytelling and really dynamic organization of experience, they can be transformative. People can find themselves a different person at the end of an experience than at the beginning. And another thing that you need to remind your partners is that you got to put yourselves in the visitor's shoes. A poor experience at a front desk, a rude waiter, poorly trained museum staff, and whatever else, other customer service issues can ruin the experience no matter how well planned it is. And so we really need to focus as experience delivery people and destination marketers and such on how do you make sure that the customer service delivered and all of the other aspects of an experience that touched someone is very well thought through. People are willing to be of service, and they're willing to treat the visitors like they really are happy that they're there. So how do you start working on the actual experience? First of all, you need to assess your best resources. Now, there are 24 different categories of resources that are available that can be a part of traveler experiences. And, you know, there are things like the regular things like attractions and activities. Your accommodations can be part of your experience. Dining, for sure. Ethnic cuisine or national kinds of dishes or other things, local particular cuisine can be very much a part of an experience. And then there are all kinds of other categories that are available resources to combine as the components of any experience. So you really need to create a comprehensive inventory of what you've got available to you. And look far and wide. Just don't focus on the regular kinds of things that people normally do in experiences. You want something special. You want unique things. So really do your research. And even if you're a single location looking to develop a visitor experience, make sure that you've looked at all the possible partners you could have and all the special things that can be woven into any experience that people aren't necessarily expecting to be a part of the experience. Surprise is really good. Something really unique is terrific. Once you have the inventory of assets created, group them into themes. And then you begin to start, you will be able to start to look at what your experience actually can be. And there are just hundreds or thousands of different things that you can thematic. I mean, you know, common things like wine trails and bourbon trails and all of that kind of thing. But if you have some kind of unique history that happened in your area, or you have some other thing that hasn't been well publicized. I'll give an example. I've worked with a little destination that has something called the Iron Masters Trail. Well, how that all started is they have unique history where they were the first location in the United States, basically in the New World, that created an iron furnace. Somebody came in 1716, discovered there was ore at the iron ore at the location, and started to mine the ore and created an iron furnace which processed the ore in a forge that could make it into things. And so ultimately from that one iron furnace, whoops, that went too far. From that one iron furnace, a number of other iron furnaces grew up in the area, and it was the total output of those furnaces that allowed the American colonies to declare their independence from Britain. No other place in the United States that has this history, because there's only one first iron furnace in the New World. So essentially, they now have an experience called the Iron Masters Trail, where a number of the historic homes of these iron masters, some of the mines are still there, the furnaces are still there. The train that hauled the ore out of town is now a visitor train. And so we took the opportunity to take all of those wonderful series of components and blended it together into a unique Iron Masters Trail. Nobody had thought of it before, something that nobody has in the United States, because nobody has that first furnace. So there's just hundreds of themes and possibilities that you can use to create different experiences. As I said previously, look far and wide and see what's really out there, even if it's not necessarily right in your area. People will travel 20 or 30 miles. If what you're offering as a part of an experience is an important part of that experience, the destination or your location basically becomes the hub, and people are perfectly comfortable in traveling 20 miles or 30 miles in any given direction, so they can have the best of a whole complete experience. So the next thing we really need to do is work with the partners to understand all of what has to happen when putting together and delivering the experience. Make sure that the people that you have, the partners that you have brought in that are going to bring the various components of the experience to the party, understand that the most wonderfully designed experience will not overcome poor delivery and won't overcome poor customer service or rude staff. Just think about it. Besides the visitors being totally stressed out, everybody delivering today's visitor experiences is also stressed out. We're all worried about our jobs. We're all worried about COVID. We're all worried about our families. We're worried about society. We're all stressed out and worried. And that includes everybody on your front lines delivering the experience. We all need to recognize that. We all need to deal with it. Even sometimes just acknowledging it is good. Businesses and activities are short-staffed, budgets have been crashed, and people are on edge. But once we recognize that situation currently, then we can get past it to start to think about how we can engage in delivering those experiences with a different mindset, which will really come through to the visitors that you're serving. Bring all your potential suppliers together, get them all in one room, and have a discussion and instill in them, we're all in this together. And once people begin to recognize that they're all there so that one small business can help another small business, or the destination can help 3 or 4 small businesses, and they're all a part of an experience, people begin to understand that all of this is happening in order to be helpful and help their businesses. First thing you have to do in any experience you're delivering these days is you got to work with everybody to make sure the visitors feel safe. There's masks, there's protocols, there's social distancing, there's all kinds of other things we never had to even think about in delivering experiences in the past. That puts another whole layer of responsibility, and it brings another whole layer of basically hassle to the delivery. But visitors aren't going to tell their friends to come back if they didn't feel safe through their experience, and it's going to put them on edge. Somebody described the other day going to a restaurant that was working on 30% capacity or whatever the number was, and they just felt totally uncomfortable there, like they couldn't relax and get into the experience the same way they had in the past at the very same restaurant, because this current situation was so front of mind, where the tables were spread apart, and it just wasn't the same type of situation. So that really bothered people, and somehow we have to overcome that. So we need that also to help our partners understand that great experiences are a source of long-term competitive advantage. When you put something together and offer it that no one else is offering, and people are enjoying it and buying it, and word of mouth advertising, telling their friends and their family and everyone else about it, the Instagram moments, they really are something that a business can get recognized for offering that's completely unique. And people will engage in unique things. And they also need to understand that the experience you're offering is really an embodiment of your brand. Think about even Disney, going to the Disney park. That's what you think of as Disney. So the experience you're offering is really the foundation of the perception of your brand. And when you think about it from that standpoint, wow, what do you want your brand to stand for? What do you want your customers to, how do you want them to perceive your organization? It's so important, because the experience they engage in is the only point of reference they have. So when you start even from the front end of marketing the experience, how easy is it to get on the website and find out what it is? How easy is it to deal with booking? How easy is it to deal with any customer service or customization or any of those kinds of things? Every one of those things is a reflection of your brand. And once you've changed or made a statement like that, it's really hard to change that perception. So as you start to think about your experience, focus the experience on a great story. Now, what you see on the slide are petroglyphs. There's a place in Utah called 9 Mile Canyon that is not 9 miles at all. It's 46 miles on a scenic drive where you are driving past a mountainside covered with these petroglyphs. It's the only place in the world like that, and the only place that you can have that kind of immersive experience. That's a great story. Great stories inspire, and the other thing they do is they promote conversation between the parties that are taking the trip. And that's the creating the memories. That's helping with the relaxation, but that's the creating the memories when your customers start to talk with each other and they talk with their family or their spouse or their kids or their whatever. That is starting to create the memories that you want to create as they're able to start responding to the story you're telling. So seeing the sights is just no longer enough. Experiential travelers want to dive way deeper into that in the stories, and there are stories in the arts, there's stories in architecture, music, cooking, food, adventure, nature, language, history, literature, and some people are even these days traveling for their passions, which is also a good story to find out from them what their passions are. And as I said before, there's just hundreds of themes that you can use. There's even more stories than that. I work with scenic byways, and we've discovered that some of the scenic byways are just thought of scenic roads, have as many as 5 different stories that can be told just about that one roadway. So there are stories all over the place. Visitors looking for authentic, they're looking for unique, and they can spot fake a mile away these days. If you're not different, they just buy on price, and that isn't what experiential travel is all about. So we need to ask the following questions when you're starting this. Even if you're a single location, what makes your destination or location special? What's unique? What have you got that nobody else has? Because visitors go to places to get an experience they can't get anywhere else. What unique, authentic, and local treasures can you celebrate or showcase? How can the visitors be engaged, and how can we inspire them? What memories do we want when our visitors to leave with? How are they likely to be attracted to our attractions? Who do we collaborate with to craft an engaging experience? And then maybe there are experiential components that need to be developed that you don't now have as you start to look at what are the actual components of the experience that you want to be offering. Maybe there's a hole in there somewhere that someone needs to fill with something unique or something that is created specifically to be a part of this experience. And then the last thing is, how can they be personalized? Because the personalized experiences are what people respond to that are transforming. When you can get people involved in something that is absolutely becomes a part of who they are, that's when you're in the transformative stage. That's kind of the golden part, the spark of any particular experience. And you need to find ways to get visitors actively involved. How are you going to engage their senses? You got to get beyond sight and sound. You got to incorporate taste, touch, and feelings, which are the other 3 senses. We normally just look at sight and sound, and because that's the reason so many of these things have just been operational or observational rather, that people watched, they didn't get involved, and you just didn't offer a way to incorporate the other 3 senses. Don't just taste the wine, meet with the vintner. Have the wine paired with food and see how it's made, so that you've got a complete experience surrounding wine. Don't just taste the food, help cook it. And in some cases, even help grow it, help harvest it, help whatever, so that by the time you've created the meal, there's much more a level of involvement, engagement in getting that food to the table. You've cooked it, you've picked it, you've done whatever with it. That's a real investment in an engagement. If you're doing a living history experience, have everybody dress the part. And that can be, those clothes that people wore back then can be really uncomfortable, but that helps people actually understand what life was like back then, much more so than if you're in your just regular dress. Don't just have costume guides, have the visitors actually wear the clothes that people wore and see what they were like. They'll be amazed at how much less comfortable they are on what we use, what we are wear today. Plant a heirloom garden, teach in a frontier school, dig in the ground in archaeology, everything to get people actually involved in the experience. And when visitors leave, what do you want them to be talking about? What highlights do you want them to actually have said, wow, that was fun. That was really, that was engaging. Wow, we were really immersed in whatever we were doing. Important these days, what pictures do you want them to post on Facebook? And what are your Instagram moments? Because social media drives most marketing these days, and some of the best marketing possible is when you've had a customer go to take your experience and post it on Facebook, and of course sends it out to all of their friends, and then their friends send it to all of their friends, etc. You get it. What do you want your customers to be writing on TripAdvisor about? Because things can get pretty hairy on the comment sites. And how do you want your customers to convey what they just went through at your destination or location on TripAdvisor? What kind of reviews are you expecting? What do you want the reviews to say? And we're just going to assume the reviews are going to be positive, but what do you want them to say in those positive reviews so that they are starting to convey the experience they've just had to other people who are reading on various comment sites and other sites like TripAdvisor and Yelp and such. What are the words you want them to use describing this to other people so that other people will want to come and do your experience? Another important thing is, how do you want the people delivering the experience to feel after the visitors have left? Now that's something we've never focused on. How does the frontline staff who's actually involved in this, how do you want them to feel? And how uplifted do you want them to feel that they've offered a really interesting, engaging experience? And what do you think your visitors will interact with that they're going to enjoy the most? And what can be done once you've done this a time or two? What can you do to enhance the experience? What can you do that is going to make it better for the people who come in the future than what you have done in the past? How is it more inspiring? Can it be made more transforming? What can you do to improve it? So once you've thought through all these things, you've got to sequence and time and craft the experience. This is choreography. Pure and simple, you are creating a choreographed experience. And think back to the first slide about the movie. You're making a movie, and you're making that movie in which your customers and visitors are going to be participating as the actors. Sequence and timing and crafting is an art. No doubt about it. Visitors don't want to be rushed. So you need to think about where will visitors go? And so many times we see nobody's thought about the driving time or the travel time or the transition time between the various activities. Some folks say, well, you can drive a byway in 2 hours. Well, that means you have to start at the beginning of the road and you have to dash down it to the end. Well, you want to stop for lunch, probably. You want to stop and maybe take some pictures. You want to get out of the car and walk around at the really gorgeous views. So what do you want visitors to do, and what do you want to plan within the experience that they will do? What will they encounter along the way? And who will they encounter along the way? So you're going to need to focus on how the experience is going to be sequenced, because they're involved in your story, and you'll need to make sure that you understand what part of the story is being told in various parts of the experience, because you're going to get you don't want them to get 3/4 of the way through and say, oh, geez, I wish I had known that at the beginning of the experience, because it would have made all the rest of the story make so much sense. So sequence is critical. Figure out what comes first, what comes second, third, and so on, so that you have developed a sequence that unfolds seamlessly as the visitors are engaged in the experience. Then you're going to have to time it. And this is another art. Time the experience in increments of 10 or 20 minutes for a short one. And if you're a longer experience, more than one day, an entire trip or whatever, you need to look at it in 30 to 45-minute increments. And if the experience is more than one day, where are they going to sleep? Where are they going to eat? And how do those pieces of what are really travel services fit into that experience? So when they end that particular day, where are they in conjunction with their accommodations? Where's the dinner restaurant? Where are the other things that they're going to need to do from a purely functional standpoint, so that they're not ending that experience and then backtracking or doing something else because the location of the accommodations hasn't been thought through carefully enough, or the other things. Where are they going to fill up the car with gas? Those kinds of things, services aspects to be tied into this, need to be a part of the experience, need to be a part of the timing, so that you get things right. There's got to be a lunch restaurant when it's time for lunch. And in most cases, it's best to make a suggestion, because people don't know when they're in an unfamiliar place how to evaluate, other than on their phones with star ratings and such. They're going to be happy to have a suggestion of something that has been pre-designed for them that fits a part of the experience and is a good place to eat. And then you need a plan B, because what happens if the weather doesn't cooperate? What happens if you've got guests that have particular conditions they need? What happens if the technology doesn't cooperate? There are just a myriad of things that can go wrong, and especially these days when everybody's kind of on their phones and computers and whatever, taking up bandwidth. What is your contingency plan in that case, so that you can act like nothing happened? I was watching a movie the other day that basically, in a hotel, the lights went out, and the owner said, well, this was a bed and breakfast. The owner said, okay, well, while we're getting this fixed, they gathered everybody up in the hotel, and they took in the bed and breakfast, and they took them on a really cool tour that hadn't been planned as a part of what they were doing. The guests loved it, and fortunately, by the time they got back, the electricity was back on. So plan B is really, really important, that you know how you can keep the experience moving, even if the worst possible thing happens. And, and then sometimes if the weather's going to be really bad, etc., you're going to have cancellations, so that will need to be handled smoothly as well, so people aren't totally disappointed and understand they can rebook a little later, etc. And you got to cover as many eventualities as you can. You got to look at guest limitations, dietary restrictions, guest safety, parking, bathroom stops, how all of those things unfold really affect how folks feel at the end of the experience. There's some real practical realities that have to be dealt with in terms of putting all of this together. Then you need to test. You actually need to have an individual, and I would say this is best to have a secret shopper who everybody doesn't know take the entire experience. So they're going to be treated just like normal guests would, because if they know you and they know you're putting this experience together, there's a possibility you're going to be treated better than regular. So get a secret shopper, one person completely uninvolved, and take the experience. Time it, and then get feedback both from people who took the experience and from your partners. That's just as important, so that everybody can come together and make sure that this experience has come off really, really, really well. The other thing you should probably do is, if there are any experiences that are even close to what you're offering by competitors, take them. See what they're doing. See how they flow. Find out what that story is. Find out how they've handled the various pieces of contingency planning and other things that need to happen. You might find out how can your experience be enhanced, and how can other things unfold better. Evaluate your final product, and make sure that it's inspiring, engaging, telling a great story, well timed and sequenced, etc. Then you're going to think about making memories and creating a lasting impression. Can there be an element of surprise that people aren't expecting? And back to those Instagrammable moments, everybody goes home and posts this stuff online these days. What are they? What is the moment that people are going to be so affected by, they're going to want to record it, and they're going to want to show it all over the world? What type of momentum do you want them to take away from the experience? And then will there be time to relax and converse? Because that's when new friendships are made. That's when families communicate with one another. That's when the real work of delivering the experience really shows as to how are people responding, how are they responding to each other after they finish the experience, because that's what they're going to tell their friends about. Once you have gone through all of that, you want to be able to price this, and you need to price it with a premium. This is unique. There's nothing else like it. So you need to put the premium on that lets you capture the value of the extra time that it took you to put this together, and that it delivers this. People don't buy on price anymore. They buy on what they think they're going to be receiving. So you need to understand what the cost of the various components are, what's the cost of marketing, and then what's the premium for uniqueness. So at the end of all of what you've done, you need to create your own movie. You need to film the entire experience. Yes, the whole thing. So that when you watch that movie, if you're engaged in the movie, your visitors are going to be engaged in the experience. If you're not, you're going to need to make modifications so you can expand the inspiration factor, etc. Then you've got pieces of the movie that you can use in marketing. One of the most impactful things you can do is show the actual visitors involved and engaged in the experience, and be watching the reaction of others. So that's going to really, that movie of your own experience is going to really show you what is this all about, and you can go about making any modifications, or possibly it could be all wonderful at that point. So Olivia, I believe we need to now turn it over for questions.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, at this time, if anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask, just feel free to type it in the chat box, and we will do our best to get those answered. I also am going to be posting a couple of links in the chat box for everybody, just with some resources to previous webinars that we've had, as well as information about any future webinars that we're going to be having. Get those in here while people. So we have a question here. It says, I think the main issue in choreographing travel experiences in tourism and hospitality is the inability to measure them.
Measure them from a success standpoint, or how other to measure? Because your customer satisfaction and your visitor satisfaction is really what's the measurement of a well choreographed experience. Have folks fill out a survey. Once they've returned home, ask them for what their impressions are. Find out from them how they felt about it. And if you can, check to see what they posted on Facebook and Instagram. That's going to tell you the real story of how they responded to the experience.
Thank you. Any other questions there? We have another one. Can you talk about how the choreographed experiences can be effectively communicated to visitors who might not have been previously aware, especially in destination?
How do you make, well, first of all, you need to market your destination, but these experiences are really the destination brand. So you need to be able to illustrate, and in these days of great video, you really need to be able to illustrate part of the choreographed experiences that people are going to be involved in, so they can actually see. But if a destination is doing these, there needs to be a whole marketing campaign that surrounds them, because you need to make sure that when people become aware of your brand, that they're aware that there are unique experiences that go along with that. It's a different approach than just saying come to the destination and showing generic videos of the destination. It would be showing pieces and parts of those experiences that visitors are actually involved in.
Right.
Do we have more questions?
See, any other questions? Those were great. Thank you, she says. Oh, they say. All right, well, it seems maybe there's no other questions at the time, but again, if you need to refer back to this, everybody is going to be sent the link to the webinar, so if you need to check back in, you're always welcome to rewatch the recording. And as well, some of the links in the chat box will tell you about future webinars we're having. Actually, next Wednesday, September 2nd at noon, there is another one on proactive strategies to ensure event success in a crisis. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you so much, Dr. Forbes, for being